it's Yolanda with Yowangdu Experience Tibet, and this is the third in a series of live videos about traveling to Mount Kailash in Tibet. So what I want to share with you today is my tentative itinerary for a 30-day trip going to Mount Kailash. And so this is a private trip. Lobsang and I don't sell tours to Tibet, although we do work with some wonderful Tibetan-owned agents in Lhasa and also in eastern Tibet. But I'm sharing this with you today because I thought that it would be useful for you to see kind of a week-by-week process of how someone plans a trip for Tibet. And I don't know if you know, but traveling to Mount Kailash includes many of the kind of top sites in central Tibet. So if you're going to Lhasa, if you're going to Shigatse, Gyantse, Everest Base Camp, this would include a lot of information that could be helpful for you. So by the way, if you're here with us live, and oh, Lobsang is here filming this video. Do you want to say hello?
Hello!
So if you're with us live, please jump on and say hello. Let us know where you're from. If you've traveled to Tibet, if you're interested in traveling to Tibet, and if you have especially any questions, I would really love to help you with that to the best that I can. So here's the exact itinerary that I'm planning right now. Of course, I'm still a couple of months out, so things can change, but this itinerary is designed specifically to help a person acclimatize as gradually as possible, as well and as risk-free as possible on a trip to the high altitudes of Tibet. So let's get started. So the trip starts with flying. I'll be taking a non-stop flight from San Francisco to Chengdu in in Sichuan province in China, so western China. And you can go any way you like. In the past, I've gone through Beijing, through Korea, and through some other things. And the idea of going nonstop is really awesome because stopping in Beijing is pretty exhausting. So if you have the chance, right now, the flight that I got is United. There's a nonstop from San Francisco to Chengdu. And I'm going to stay overnight in Chengdu, and then after a night in Chengdu, I'm going to fly from Chengdu to Xining, I think, and Tibetans call it Xiling. And the reason for going to Xiling is, if you've followed our stuff at all, you know that it's a really good idea to acclimatize before you get to Lhasa. So the basic rules for acclimatization are that you should spend 2 nights before you get to 9,000 feet. Lhasa is about 12,000 feet. I'm going to use very rough altitudes in this video. So Lhasa is about 12,000 feet, and Xining is about 7,500. So it's a really nice interim altitude for you to just kind of rest, for your body to start to acclimatize. I'm staying, you know, a minimum would be 1 night, but I'm going to stay 2. Just because I really want to feel good on this trip, and Mount Kailash is so high that I really just want to give my body the chance, every chance it can get to feel really solid when I do get to Mount Kailash, because the altitude there is so extreme. So in Xining, by the way, you can take day trips. You're kind of you're at the gateway to Amdo and Kham in eastern Tibet, and you can take kind of some wonderful day trips to Kumbum Monastery and other local monasteries. So anyway, after 2 nights in Xining, I'm going to jump on the train to Lhasa. And again, I'm going to share with you again, even though we say it all the time, as far as we know, it is far better to take the train to Lhasa than to fly. And that is because the main big reason is that from all the research that I can tell, it's really a problem with Tibet travel, is that there is very little solid, peer-reviewed, research about acclimatization, about specifically about tourists going to Tibet. There's almost nothing, basically. So we're just putting together everything that we can, and also from personal experience. So the reason to take the train is that if you fly from sea level to Lhasa, from 0 to 12,000 feet, basically, you are putting yourself at a small risk, but a risk nevertheless of just developing a pulmonary embolism, edema, I'm sorry. So developing pulmonary edema on arrival. So a very small percentage of people do get that. And apparently on the train, that's not the case. It's not to say that people don't get sick. They do get sick. You can still get altitude sickness. You probably, honestly, many of you will get altitude sickness going on the train into Lhasa, but you don't stand that risk, apparently, of getting pulmonary edema like right away on arrival there. So that's the reason I'm taking it. That's the reason that I'm taking the train, and plus it's supposed to be a gorgeous ride. So by the way, I'm going to take the train. It's extremely crowded. You need to book your train like 60 days out. That's when they start booking. So I'm going in September, and so September is a fairly busy time. And anyway, I'm going to try and get my train for 8:20 in the evening out of Sining and into Lhasa, and that's because our good friend Jamin over at the Land of Snows has taken the train 1,000 million times and says that that gives you the best views during daylight hours. So of course, you get on the train, it's dark, you don't see anything, but then the train lasts 24 hours, and by the time you get to on the way, you start to get some really fantastic views. So moving on, I'll take the train to Lhasa, be there in 24 hours, and then I'm going to spend 4 nights in Lhasa. And I'm spending 4 nights in Lhasa the same reason that I'm spending 2 nights in Sealing. I want to give my body the chance to acclimatize. I am also, by the way, going to take Diamox, high altitude sickness medicine, and I'm going to rest my first couple days in Lhasa. Definitely the first whole day I will just rest, and then as much of the second or third as I need to. Those are just kind of some basic rules to do. I think it's real easy, and I think I've been guilty of this a little bit in the past, of having a kind of a little bit of a macho attitude. I'm not like a macho person, but I think you get this kind of feeling of like, oh, well, I don't, I'm okay, I'm strong, I can do this. And it really has nothing to do with that. It's just your body is undergoing some incredible changes at high altitude, and I think you just need to respect that. Or I'll just say for myself, I've really grown to see the need to respect that, and knowing that how ill and risky it can be if you don't. So 4 nights in Lhasa, and then after Lhasa, there's basically a big road trip that goes from Lhasa out to far western Tibet, where Mount Kailash is located. So you follow the same path that many people go if you're going to Mount Everest. In my case, I'm actually going to go to Everest on the way back from Mount Kailash, which is a little unusual, but I'm doing it in September, and here's why. So I'm going to Everest on the way back because September is still can be a little bit rainy in Tibet. Like July and August are the most rainy times, and it's calming down in September. But you stand the chance of having a cloudy day at Everest, which you don't want to have. And the second reason is Kailash is at such high altitude, so when you're trekking at Kailash, you really you want it to be as warm as you can. So I want to get, and it starts cooling down really fast. So I'm trying to get to Mount Kailash earlier in the month, and then come back and hit Everest Base Camp on the way back, and then have a better chance of a clear day at Everest Base Camp. Honestly, I think the day would probably be fine in earlier September, but this just suits both purposes, and I can do that. So just quickly, on the way from Lhasa, you go through some of the highlights of central Tibet. Gyaltse, you spend a night in Gyaltse, and then spend a night in Shigatse, which has this wonderful Tashi Lumpo monastery, and the beautiful Kora that goes around the pilgrim circuit, which is a beautiful hike that goes around the Tashi Lumpo monastery, and then a night at Lhasa, and then a night at Saga. That's a pretty big jump in altitude. The other ones are just like 1,000. It goes down, little up, little down. But from Lhasa to Saga is a 2,000 feet jump, so it's a pretty big one. And fortunately, you spend the next night at Lake Manasarovar, which is about the same altitude as saga. So another basic rule of acclimatization is you want to spend 2 nights to get to 9,000 feet. Above around 9,000 feet, you try not to ascend more than 1,500 feet a night, and then after 3,000 feet, you need a rest night. It means you need to stay at the same altitude for an extra day. So fortunately, this trip takes you Saga, and then you drive on to Lake Manasarova, and they happen to be about the same altitude, so that's very fortunate. You don't need to, interrupt your trip or stay somewhere special for an extra night. From Lake Manasarova, it's just a quick jump over to Darchen, which is at the foot of Mount Kailash, and Mount Kailash, and it's the start of the Kora around Mount Kailash, or the trek, the pilgrim circuit around Mount Kailash. At that point, you're walking, and there's not really much choice. A lot of Tibetans do the whole Kora in a day, but most people can't do that. I'm not even going to try. So, most folks take 3 days most Westerners take 3 days to make this circuit. So the first day you go from Darchen to Didakpu. The second day from Didakpu over the Domala Pass, and this is your highest point. It's 18,500 to Zurukpu, and then last day is Zurukpu back down to Darchen. And then you come out, Darchen to Saga, and then in my case, from Saga to, and here's another little point that's a little unique. A lot of people will take you to sleep at Everest Base Camp. I've slept at Everest Base Camp, and I really don't recommend it. It's like you get the joy of Everest Base Camp is seeing Mount Everest and, hiking around there, seeing Rumbu Monastery. Like, it's no fun to sleep at Everest Base Camp. The tents are kind of cool. They have the nice, yak tents, but it's, people are miserable at 17,500 feet. You're just not, your body's not happy. And so I requested our guide this time to take somewhere a little lower. And so we're going to try Old Tingri, which is nearby and lower. It's about 14,000 feet, which sounds fantastic compared to 17,500. From Tingri to the next day, we'll go from Tingri, actually just take a morning trip up to Everest Base Camp and see beautiful Mount Everest in the early morning light, and then we'll head to Shigatse back to Lhasa. So on my particular trip, on this particular route, I'm going to try a rest day in Lhasa because it's like a long journey out there and back, and I think it'll be really kind of nice and fun just to hang out in Lhasa for a day. And then I want to go to do the Ganden to Samye trek. I'm going to take 4 days to do that. I'm going to go Lhasa to Ganden, and then do the trek in 4 stages. The high point on that trek is around 17,000, but the pass. But you're sleeping. There are 2 passes, but you're sleeping at 14,500, 16,000, 16,000. So hopefully at that point I'll be pretty well acclimatized, but those are still pretty high. And then the last day come down to Samye Monastery, which is a wonderful little monastery and really recommended on this trip. Really special atmosphere at Samye. After Lhasa, I'm going to have another rest day, and this is kind of a contingency day because things can happen on your trip, right? And so it's like just a spare day in case something gets moved, and then fly to Lhasa. And then fly Lhasa to Chengdu. In this case, you don't need to take the train. If you want to, you can take that extra time, but I'm going to fly Lhasa to Chengdu and Chengdu to San Francisco. So there's my 30-day itinerary to Mount Kailash. And so if you're interested in Tibet, so let us know. We have a plan to help you. So it's a 2-part plan. So first of all, we refer you to a Tibetan owned travel agency. That's a free service. You can start talking to the travel agents at any time, a year in advance. It's not too early. It's a really great idea. Like they'll give you invaluable tips. And then we also, Lobsang and I, have the Tibet travel plan, and that's a comprehensive guide that you use as a companion to your work with the Tibet travel agent, and we just give you all the information that you need to prepare yourself for your trip before you go. So our travel agents will help you on the whole Tibet side, and then we'll help you on everything you need to do to prepare your trip and yourself before you go. And I'll post a link here after that. So please do, if you have any questions, let us know. We'll be happy to answer at any point. So if you can post them below, and in the coming days or weeks, we'll keep a notice and answer your questions. We're also happy to answer any questions that you have about any trips that you'd like us to talk about, or any questions that you have about traveling Tibet that you'd like us to talk about. And I'm really deep into planning for this Mount Kailash trip, so I'm very happy to talk about and kind of brainstorm and work with anybody about talking about a Kailash trip in particular. And I think that's it. Lobsang, anything else?
No.
Okay.
That's pretty much it. Oh, one more thing.
Yeah.
I think while you're in Lhasa, what are you going to do?
Oh, while I'm in Lhasa, I am going to hit all the Lhasa high points. I'll be seeing Drepung Monastery, Sera Monastery. Normally you would go out to Ganden, but since we're going to Ganden on the way back from Mount Kailash, I won't be going to Ganden at the first part. Of course, the beautiful Jokang Temple, which is like the really spiritual heart of Tibet and Lhasa, and it's one of the most amazing places that you can ever go. And the pago that walks around the Jokang Temple. And then there's the Rameshan Temple, which I really love, a little smaller one, roughly the same age, I think, as the Jokang Temple, in the old part of Lhasa. There's also the Potala Palace, which is the Potala, of course, is an iconic, very special symbol of, you know, His Holiness, and very important to Tibetans. At the same time, it's a little bit, honestly, depressing. It's kind of more like a museum than a living place anymore. But it's still very precious. You can walk up, and you can go to His Holiness chambers, the different chambers of the Dalai Lamas through the years, and including the 14th Dalai Lama's chambers. And then Norbalinka, you know, His Holiness Summer Palace, also is a fabulous place to go. And if there's time, I'm going to go out to Dakyerpa, near to Lhasa, and see some of the Hermitage caves near there. And also in Samye, just above Samye, is Chimpu Monastery above the Samye that I hope to get to while I'm in Samye as well. So I think that's enough for one day, and I'll just be, every week I'm going to be keeping on with these lives to just share with you my journey as I'm planning to go to Mount Kailash. And hope you guys are doing great, and please give us any feedback and any questions, and thanks so much. Bye.